Next News. Breaking news.
Zohran Mamdani said Netanyahu's September trip sparked an active conversation about arresting him. So stop right there. A New York communist just floated grabbing Israel's prime minister on American soil for a corrupt globalist court, and then Trump flattened the whole fantasy. And wait until you hear the federal law part. See, Donald Trump posted that Benjamin Netanyahu will not be arrested in any way, shape, or form. And that line matters because Mamdani didn't just mouth off, he aimed city power at a U.S. ally while hiding behind the International Criminal Court. Now say this with me. John Yoo says the American Service Members Protection Act of 2002 bars U.S. officials from cooperating with that court. So this clown stunt crashes straight into federal law, national sovereignty, and America's control over America. And yes, even John Fetterman looked at Mamdani and said, "Sit down." And that's just how exposed this whole circus is. Also breaking tonight, tightening global supply pressure and near-record tungsten prices are pushing Washington to accelerate a critical mineral supply chain rebuild, with tungsten now a tungsten national security priority for fighter jets, tanks, missiles, drones, and ammunition. The United States has had no U.S. commercial tungsten mining since 2015, and President Trump's Project Vault includes a $12 billion strategic stockpile and $30 billion domestic production push, while the Pentagon has directed millions towards restarting U.S. tungsten production. Vault Strategic Mining, trading is KNOX in Canada and KNXFF in the United States, is now advancing historic tungsten assets in mining-friendly U.S. jurisdictions, including Nevada's Great Basin. Now, the property carries a second World War defense-related exploration contract, approximately 10,000 feet of drilling, and a USGS estimate of roughly 168,000 tons of tungsten oxide, with $30 to $50 billion of an estimated in-ground value. Make sure, if you would like to find out more, review the Next News intelligence briefing that's been prepared for you, linked below. Now here's where it gets wild. Mike Pompeo, I'm not a real big fan, but he called Mamdani a communist anti-Semitic mayor on camera. And that's a detail I can't shake because Pompeo named the rot directly while Mamdani played word games about applicable local laws. So keep that in front of you when we pull up Trump's posts and the receipts. So here's the clip that's making the rounds. The Blaze posted this. Mamdani says he's in talks to potentially have Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu arrested when he visits New York City for a UN meeting.
In September.
Okay, I believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu belongs in The Hague. He's a war criminal who has been charged by the International Criminal Court. And what you will find is that is an opinion that is held by many purely because of what his actions have wrought over these last many years. I've also said that I will follow the laws that we have here in New York City because I believe that there's an importance in following the law as a leader who presides over our city, and that's something that I plan to do.
Meaning? I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means.
Meaning that whatever the law allows me to do in New York City, that's what we will do, but we won't be writing our own laws to that end.
What does the law allow you to do?
That's an active conversation with our legal department in seeing what the prospects are we have here in our municipality. However, what we've seen at the national level is a desire sometimes to write your own laws, to go outside of the bounds of legality. That's not something we have an interest in.
Sure. So he didn't just float it once. He left the door open and said his legal team's looking at options. Now watch him double down in public, even as Trump makes clear the stunt is dead on arrival. Here he is. Ugandan New York City Mayor Mamdani doubles down.
To Benjamin Netanyahu, we're speaking about someone who's the subject of an international criminal court arrest warrant. And he's the subject of this arrest warrant for alleged crimes against humanity, for war crimes, and he's the architect of the genocide against Palestinians in Gaza as Israel's prime minister. These are not facts of my personal assessment, they are facts of public record. And I believe that when someone is charged with an international criminal court warrant, it's something that should be taken seriously, whether it's Benjamin Netanyahu or it's Vladimir Putin or whomever else. What I've also made clear is that my administration will follow all applicable local laws. That is our commitment. That is something that we will follow through on when it comes to an adherence to local law. And that's all I have to add on that.
Thank you. And now we're going to go to Heather from News 12.
Yeah, so he's playing word games here. He knows he can't do anything. He's just trying to run headlines. President Trump telling the ICC and Mamdani to screw off. Here's the president's post. Netanyahu will not be arrested in any way, shape, or form while in the United States. He's fighting against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which recently killed 52,000 innocent protesters, has spent the last 47 years killing American soldiers and others. The only ones that should be arrested are the people that led Iran into this unprecedented spiral of death and destruction, something that should have been dealt with years ago by previous presidents. So Trump drawing the line, and next to legal reality, backs him up. A blunt breakdown of why New York City has zero authority. The mayor of New York City has zero authority to arrest Netanyahu during a visit to the UN. Under the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations of 1961, the UN HQ agreement with the U.S. and customary international law, heads of government and foreign ministers are protected from arrest or detention while on official business at the UN. There it is. Vienna Convention. So even before you get to politics, the law says the arrest fantasy goes nowhere. Now John Yoo takes it further, arguing Mamdani's comments could put him on the radar of Trump's Justice Department.
After the 9/11 attacks, the Bush administration, and I was an official of the Justice Department, we participated with Congress to pass a law that prohibits any official in the United States from cooperating with the ICC. So what Mayor Mamdani is calling on is for the officials of New York City, including himself, to violate federal law. So in the end, it's not Netanyahu who should be arrested and investigated. I'm not trying to exaggerate here. The mayor is violating the American Servicemen Protections Act passed in 2002, and the Justice Department should be investigating him. And the president, under that law, is authorized to use all necessary means to prevent any American or ally from being handed over to that court. So if Mayor Mamdani wants to spend a lot of time dealing with FBI agents and the Justice Department investigators, well, he just started that. He just launched that whole process for himself and the residents of New York City.
So you says it's not just empty posturing. It could cross into a federal problem. Now even Democrat John Fetterman is mocking Mamdani as a clown with no power to do any of this.
Thoughts here on Mamdani threatening to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes to the U.S.?
It's such a tough guy to say that kind of thing. He has no way to do that. Of course, obviously, America's not even part of that corrupt court. And so he's just a clown to even say that. So he won't try that. And I'll just sit down and focus on the problems that they have in New York. That's really not your purview. You and I know that. Sit down.
Yeah.
Sit down, Mamdani. So when you've lost Fetterman, you know the stunt is falling apart. Next, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the quiet part out loud and calls out the anti-Israel obsession behind it.
This is a communist, anti-Semitic mayor trying to make news for his own audience. There's nothing more than that. There's no chance he's going to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu when he comes to New York in September for the UN General Assembly. It's just simply not going to happen. And he knows you could hear it. You could hear his voice, Joe. Yeah. But more importantly, we should all just think about. He identified one leader. He didn't identify Vladimir Putin, who's taken tens of thousands of Ukrainian kids and took them back to Russia. He didn't identify the leader in Iran, who's committed massive war crimes. He talked about the one leader of the one Jewish state. I think that tells you all you need to know about what Mayor Mamdani was actually saying to the New York Times.
Who happens to be...
So Pompeo says Mamdani singled out the one Jewish state and tried to make headlines with it. Now comes the hard reality check. If you ever try to involve the New York Police Department, this could collide head-on with federal law and federal force. If he orders the NYPD to arrest Netanyahu, which theoretically he could, the police might find themselves in an armed confrontation with the U.S. military. Reality Check CEO Daniel Speak Up joins whoever on the rundown.
Well, it's hard for me to know what he's thinking in his head or what he plans to do, but I do know that it violates U.S. federal law. In the year 2002, a bipartisan law passed by Congress called the American Service Members Protection Act said that anyone cooperating with the International Criminal Court is in violation of U.S. federal law. So if Mamdani does that, he's breaking federal law. And if he orders the New York police to try and arrest Netanyahu, which theoretically he could, the police might find themselves in an armed confrontation against the United States military. I don't think that's likely to actually happen, but that's where the law would take us if he moved forward on this.
John Yoo. He said cooperating with the ICC violates the American Service Members Protection Act of 2002. And Trump slammed the door with Benjamin Netanyahu will not be arrested in any way, shape, or form, which means Mamdani didn't just posture like a radical clown. He walked right up to the line of soliciting an illegal attack on American sovereignty on a U.S. ally from a mayor's office that can't even run New York without gas. So John Yoo said the DOJ should investigate Mamdani, and that needs to happen. You don't let a communist mayor flirt with using NYPD power against Benjamin Netanyahu for a corrupt foreign court and then shrug it off like street theater. Trump crushed the fantasy in one sentence. Fetterman torched him as a clown and told him to sit down. Pompeo nailed it as a communist, anti-Semitic mayor. The ugliest part sits right in front of us. Mamdani picked the leader of the one Jewish state and tried to dress that obsession up as law. That's not leadership. That's radical rot in a suit. So hit the comments and tell me if the DOJ should hammer this right now, and then share this with one person who still thinks these city-level radicals are just quirky and harmless. Mamdani's Netanyahu stunt, though, is exactly the kind of report that these platforms love to choke. So text White House to 844-840-4963. Next News Network is credentialed inside the White House, and we send what our team pulls from inside the building straight to your phone nightly ahead of the crowd and past the suppression.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.